we're out on the range today, so please bear with gunfire you hear in the background. If you've seen very much of my work, you've seen me compare and demonstrate a fair number of different types of ammunition. And that's led to people asking me for recommendations as to what they should use for concealed carry, personal protection, home defense. And I'm very reluctant to make recommendations, not knowing you or what kind of gun you carry, the conditions under which you carry it, your capabilities and limitations, your local laws. I couldn't make recommendations in good conscience. But recently a lot of people have asked me what kind of ammunition I carry. Okay, that I can answer, so here we are. But this comes with 5 caveats. The first one being that all I'm doing today is answering the question, what kind of ammunition do I carry and why? Nothing I say should be inferred as a recommendation. Second, although there are some exceptions, I'm not a fan of the boutique or premium or hyper ammunitions. To explain why adequately would take an hour, so that's a topic for a different time. 3, all I'm doing today is answering the question, what kind of ammunition do I carry and why? I'm not making any recommendations. 4, the question, what type of ammunition do I carry, does not have a particularly interesting answer. And 5, I'm not making any recommendations. So all those in place, I brought some of the handguns that I most commonly use. Let's get started. I'm going to start with my Smith & Wesson Model 36, and I'll go back 10 yards and shoot these 2 targets with 2 different types of ammunition. My aim point for both of these targets was centered. You can see very different points of impact. It's very common that concealed carry type of handguns do not have adjustable sights. It's also fairly common that snub-nose revolvers will significantly change their point of impact when you change ammunitions. So first and foremost in finding the right carry ammunition for this was finding something that would hit consistently with where my non-adjustable sights are aligned. I'm not a supporter of adjusting my point of aim or using what we used to call Kentucky windage. Also, I had to find a plus P hollow point that would give adequate expansion in my 1 7/8 inch barrel. It also has to be readily available at multiple stores and reasonably priced. And there's no surprise that my solution to that was Remington Green and White Box 38 Special plus P 125 grain jacketed hollow point. Now in my other 38 Special that I commonly use, this Smith & Wesson Model 15 with a 4-inch barrel, it has adjustable sights. But it still sometimes has the problem of different types of ammunition will hit in different places. As a matter of consistency, I use the Remington Green and White Box in both guns. And so the Remington Green and White Box is both my carry ammo and my practice ammo for both of my 38 Special revolvers. Next on my list is my Beretta Model 92FS caliber 9x19. It does not have the problem that the snub-nose 38 does. I can use almost any 9mm ammunition and my variation in point of impact will be minimal. But when selecting carry ammunition for 9x19, there are a plethora of choices you can make, most of which are pretty good. Some are outstanding and some are not. But in my particular case, I very often carry this pistol in the field with my carry ammunition and then do some impromptu plinking or shooting, and so my carry ammunition gets used up quite frequently, as opposed to a lot of people who will purchase a particular type of carry ammunition and then use it for a year, 2 years, 5 years, never having shot a single shot of it before they trade it out. So in my particular case, in addition to wound cavity, cost and convenience of acquisition become concerns. And my solution to that is Remington Green and White Box 9x19 115 grain jacketed hollow point. which quite often ends up being my practice ammunition as well. But when it isn't, I typically use Remington green and white box 9x19 115 grain full metal jacket round nose. So again, no surprise here. However, my choice of carry ammunition for my Colt government model caliber .38 super automatic might surprise you. What you see here are 3 5-shot groups fired at 10 yards. The first one is Remington green and white box 130 grain full metal jacket round nose. The second one is Winchester white box 130 grain full metal jacket flat nose. Because they both hit in the same place and they both function reliably in my gun, either will suffice for practice ammunition, depending on what's available at the store that day. However, for hunting non-game animals like jackrabbits, I do prefer the flat nose because it gives me more of the desired effect than the round nose does. But as far as a hollow point personal protection or game animal hunting carry round, that's Winchester Silvertip 125 grain jacketed hollow point. Now it takes a minute to explain why I use this particular ammunition. According to the sources I read, .38 Super Auto was introduced in 1928. And it was fairly popular, but over the decades it really fell out of favor. This one was manufactured in 2011 and that's when I bought it. And at that time, I could find the practice ammunitions, but I really couldn't find any kind of hollow point carry type ammunition. So I went to a store that's pretty good about having 1 or 2 boxes of the more obscure calibers and found the Winchester Silvertips. They function correctly, they hold good groups. I took them deer hunting, shot 2 deer. I was very impressed with wound channel and bullet expansion, so that's what I went with. I continue to use that ammunition mainly because it works for me, and one of the crew found a really good deal online, got me a couple of boxes of it, so that's what I have. However, in the last couple of years, at least in the part of the country I live in, .38 Super's been making quite a comeback, and so now you're finding the practice ammunition more often and several varieties of carry type ammunition. So when it comes time to trade out my Winchester Silvertips, what I'll most likely go with is Sig Sauer Elite Performance 125 grain jacketed hollow point. It's reasonably priced, readily available, I've shot it, and it works. Now at the beginning I said I'm not really a fan of the hyper ammunitions, and whether or not Winchester Silvertip is a hyper ammunition is a matter of opinion to some degree. But one place where I really make an exception is caliber 25 ACP, and my carry ammunition in this caliber is Hornady Custom 35 grain jacketed hollow point. The reasoning being, it hits in the same place as my practice ammunition, it's readily available and reasonably priced, and any shooting I've ever done with it, it seems to be effective, up to and including killing a deer with this pistol right here. Now granted, that was a fairly well-centered headshot from 5, maybe 7 yards away, but it worked. And yes, it was perfectly legal in the state that I live in. But one real exception I make about hyper ammunition is in caliber 380 ACP. Let me show you something. I just fired 4 shots of 380 ACP, and you could easily see that the first 2 were far more effective than the second 2. Let me show you a close-up of the projectiles. And here's our first 2, extremely good expansion stopped by the first layer of fleece, and our second two, no expansion, stopped by about the 20th layer of fleece. So what were the two different types of .380 ammunition I was using? Would it surprise you to know that it was all the exact same stuff? Remington green and white box, .380 ACP, 88 grain jacketed hollow point? So what made the first two rounds perform so well while the second two rounds performed so poorly? It was the same target, at the same distance, all the ammunition came out of the same box. The only difference was the guns I used. The first two I fired with a Beretta model 1934 with its 3.5-inch barrel, and the second two a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard with its 2 3/4-inch barrel. Could 3/4 of an inch of barrel really make that much difference? Well, depending on what you're measuring, 3/4 of an inch might be a lot of difference. But what this really illustrates is whether your .380 ammunition performs very well or very poorly can sometimes hinge on what would seem to be subtle things. And because I don't use a .380 ACP very often, and there's so many different types of ammunition out there, I have not yet come to a really solid decision as to which one I like the most. Right now the front runner is the Hornady Critical Defense with its 88 grain FTX projectile, like a ballistic tip. But in the recent past, some viewers have sent me some .380 ammunition, so I'm hoping to, in the near future, do a couple of presentations on .380 ammo selection and come to a more definitive answer. In the meantime, however, I hope today's presentation answered at least to some extent what types of ammunition I use and why. And as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching.